Welcome back to Unadvertised. I'm your host, Melina Lopez. Disclaimer: the information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. Any reliance in the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. The content discussed will include sensitive topics such as sexual assault, self harm, violence, and mental illness. Listen with caution. Today's story is about Barbara. Barbara left for Orlando, Florida on January 3rd, 1987, excited about the next chapter in her life. She had chosen to go to air traffic school and become an air traffic controller. Once boot camp started, she didn't have much time to socialize. Although she enjoyed it, it had its ups and downs. Several events happened while she was there, like when half of her company had an allergic reaction to the gas chamber, or when Barbara's company was lined out in front of the building and the gas chamber unexpectedly exploded. There were no memorable moments except for graduation after that. After graduation, Barbara went home for a couple of weeks until she had to be at her next station, which was in Tennessee. After visiting family members with her family, Barbara took a bus from Knoxville to Millington and then another bus to base. The following Saturday after arriving, a girl was stabbed to death behind her barracks. The story Barbara heard was that the girl who was killed had been raped the previous weekend. She reported it, and in order to keep her quiet, they killed her. Of course, the case was never solved. Barbara spent her days going to school, working, and having fun with friends that she made at her new base. On Sundays, Barbara and her friends would all get picked up at the base and taken to church in Memphis, where they will spend their entire day. They were so active that they would attend Bible study on Wednesdays as well. One night, one of Barbara's friends from base took her to a few bars, one in Memphis and another one on the base. They had so much fun that they skipped the drinking and went straight to the singing. And Barbara and her friends The following weekend, Barbara and her friend that took her to the bar were supposed to go to an Indy 500 party at a Best Western in Millington, room 222. As Barbara was waiting for her friend to finish getting ready, she got impatient and decided to tell her to meet at the party. Back where Barbara lived, the 500 is huge and celebrated the whole month of May. It was a Friday afternoon, and Barbara was sure she'd know someone else at the party since it was a party for the people on base. Barbara reached room 222, which was the last room at the end of the hall. As she entered the room, she was immediately grabbed. Barbara asked, "What's going on?" and was confused, wondering, "Who are these men pushing up against me?" Barbara noticed there were several men coming towards her. She thought to herself as she began to panic, "Something's wrong. This isn't right. Isn't this supposed to be a 500 party? What's happening?" They instructed Barbara to strip. In shock, she responded, "Nope, not gonna happen," which was when she was hit for the first time. She was struck with enough force she saw stars and fell back onto the ground. Again, they told her to strip, and again, she said no. They struck her, but this time they struck her several times, which caused her to pass out. When Barbara woke up, she was on a bed, naked, tied down, and spread eagle, with nowhere to hide. They began taking turns raping her, using her for their pleasure. They would go in order of their rank. The officers and the military police went first, then the enlisted men. A lieutenant went and cleaned himself up in the bathroom while a captain began to bite her. Barbara will never forget the captain. He comes back into the story later when he makes appointments with her. Once he goes to wash up, the military police have their turn, sometimes raping Barbara two at a time. They took pictures of their conquest. Barbara was humiliated. To them, she was no longer a person, but an object to be beaten and used. They did unspeakable things to her. Being that Barbara was raised a Catholic, abstinent, and had always kept to herself, not ever having had a boyfriend before, this meant that she didn't know anything sexual in nature. One of the military policemen stuck his penis in her anus. It hurt so bad Barbara passed out. Another stuck his penis in her mouth. They took their turns, sometimes two at a time. Then the enlisted men all took their turns. Barbara looked around the room across from the bed she was on. There was a dresser with a TV, boombox playing loud music, and then there was a picture of a hay barn. Barbara would concentrate on that picture to escape reality. On the back wall there was a mirror with lights above it, a door to the right, inside a toilet, and a tub. In front of the mirror was a countertop with a sink in the middle. There was a tray with 4 cups and a bucket of ice in the right corner. As she was looking around the room, one of the guys decided instead of going to use the toilet in the bathroom, he started urinating on Barbara. She then continued. Under the sink, a trash can. In front of a large table with an overhead light. On the wall, there was another country picture. The bed had 2 bedside tables and 2 wall lights. In front of the window on the other side of the bed was a smaller table with an overhead light. On the table, ashtrays where the officers sat. The bigger table on the other side was mainly where military police sat. There were beer cans everywhere, ashtrays on the tables and the sink. They played a lot of cards on the big table. If Barbara was thirsty, she was given urine to drink. Later, when she became hungry, she had a choice. Her feces or theirs. As the officers would go out and get fast food or order pizza and just eat right in front of her. At this point, not only was her spirit broken, but there was no fight left in her. She had completely disappeared and just laid there, emotionless. They left her naked, uncovered, and continued to party around her. This is when the threats started and continued through the rest of the weekend. They constantly reminded her that she better not tell anyone and remember that it's their word against hers. They told her that they outranked her. They're military police, and she's just a recruit. Who did she think they were going to believe? People came and went, but no one said anything or even attempted to save her. Around midnight, one of the military police came back to have his way with her again. This time, he couldn't achieve an erection. So he took his sidearm and shoved it into her anus as hard as he could. She began to profusely bleed. She was in tremendous amount of pain. She prayed for death. Sobbing, going in and out of consciousness, she laid there like a party favor for all to see. Others joined in her torture, taking pictures, doing whatever they think of to her. The following morning, 2 more officers arrived, and they did a change of command, as if it was normal and not a big deal. The torture continued as people came in and out of the room. Barbara would think to herself, why isn't anyone saying anything? Why isn't anyone rescuing her? She laid there confused for a while, until a kind-hearted gentleman came in and saw what was going on. He felt sorry for Barbara and immediately ran over to cover her. He then went into the bathroom, took the ice bucket, filled it with hot water, brought out soap, grabbed a washcloth and a towel, went over and started cleaning her up. He cleaned her from head to toe. This was the first act of kindness she had been shown since the whole ordeal started. All of a sudden, she heard someone say, "Rape her! Rape her!" One of the military police was holding a gun to the nice guy. He ordered him to rape her and before he could even finish his sentence, he did what he was told. They took pictures to ensure he kept his mouth shut. The rest of the day went as before. People came and went, and whoever wanted to could have her. Around 5 p.m., the alcohol ran out, so the guys came up with another way to make money so that they could buy more alcohol. They sold her for $2 a lay. At this point, the officers wanted no part of that and left, leaving only the military police and enlisted. The party got rougher, but Barbara felt gone. She no longer existed. To find out you are worth so little, Barbara was heartbroken, just like her will to live. The next day was Sunday. They don't check into base until Tuesday, which meant another day of torture. Monday afternoon, the last customer was so large, she felt as if she ripped in two. After him, a couple of guys picked her up, walked her out, and threw her over the railing. She barely made it into the pool below. Her breast, thighs, and the tops of her feet were scraped up. The pool both hurt and felt good. The cool water was soothing to her overused parts and open injuries. The police were called, but Barbara didn't know by whom. She thought it was almost over, breathing a sigh of relief. All of a sudden, she was pulled from the pool and shuffled from room to room, hiding her from the police. Finally landing in one of the girls she knew's barrack, she was with her boyfriend. Barbara began to think, for sure she'll believe her, and it's all over now. No, her friends started berating her immediately. Barbara just wanted to take a shower and put something on to cover her up. But her friend refused to let her take a shower as if she was contaminated or something. One of the guys came and dropped off what was left of her uniform, the shirt and skirt. Barbara was finally able to put something on, at least a shirt and a skirt, for the first time since this whole thing started. Barbara's so-called friend continued to berate her, telling her how she set women back in the Navy by her actions. She wouldn't listen. No one would. What's the use? It's just her word against the officers and military police's. Who would she even report it to? Who would she tell? Later that day, there was a knock at the door. Barbara's friend who was berating her answered. It was a gentleman asking if he can have her. The girl responds, "Yes, take her. She's trash anyways." Then they walked around to a Volkswagen Beetle barefoot, as she had no longer had any garments, shoes, or cover. There were 4 of them. They put her in the back seat and pushed her to the floor. All Barbara thought was, "Here we go again. Will I live through this? Is it ever really going to end?" Barbara then had an idea. She began to convulse, pretending to have a seizure to see if she could get them to stop. The guys in the back seat freaked out and didn't want any part of her anymore. She thought to herself, "It's working." They pulled up behind a baseball field, got her out of the car, and started to march her to the dugout. Barbara pretended to collapse and have another seizure, still having no effect on the military police in the front seat. They just barked out orders to the two that were holding Barbara down. They did as they were told, and they had their way with her, then again leaving her naked. After the two finished, they decided that she needed more, sexually assaulting her with the sidearm. Barbara began to bleed and pass out from the pain. When Barbara woke up, it was dark. She didn't see her clothes right away, but then found them on home base. She got dressed and walked barefoot with only a skirt and a shirt on. Needless to say, she never spoke to her friend again. After Barbara walked into the base, she was never stopped or reprimanded. She had no identification with her. However, they were still able to verify her identity. They just shrugged their shoulders and signed her in. Didn't ask any questions. She then cried all the way back to the barracks. Once back at her barracks, she was checked in, and again, no one asked what happened or asked if she was okay. She went to her room, grabbed soap, shampoo, conditioner, and any other cleaner that she could find in her locker. Went to the shower where she just cried, scrubbed, screamed, and collapsed. But again, no one came. After that day, her grades dropped. She jumped at every noise or shadow and started drinking at night to cope. Barbara's barracks commander got a hold of some of the pictures, but instead of asking her for an explanation, they just automatically assumed and further degraded her, telling her that she was awful and how she single-handedly took women in the Navy back at least 40 years. Barbara's barracks commanders came up with an idea that she would go to the male barracks next door and apologize to their commander. Unfortunately, Barbara did as she was told. To her surprise and shock, the commander next door was the captain from the weekend of hell. Of course, he accepted the apology, but made a schedule with her commanders for her to get some classes on how to act with males, which just turned into rape by appointment. This is when the threats started daily, but she knew better than to talk since she had already seen the results of that in the parking lot her first weekend at the base. A week went by, and the male commanders began to instruct the men from their barracks to take Barbara to the golf course while they took turns raping her. At one point, Barbara believed that they were no longer being instructed and assaulted her because they wanted to. Barbara both loved and hated that she was being abused by them because she knew someone else was. Barbara felt guilt knowing someone else was taking her place. They had the perfect setup going on. New young recruits, officers, and military police wanting the same thing, forming a pack like wolves. They fed on the young, unprepared kids, 18, 19, and 20, both male and female. More female than male. It was always the recruits against the commanders, officers, and military police if it was reported at all. 2 males and 3 females committed suicide while Barbara was there those 9 months. There is more to Barbara's story, which will continue in a part 2, and it will be out next Friday. Thank you for tuning in to Unadvertised. If you or someone you know has experienced a similar situation, I encourage you to reach out for help. Remember, sharing your story can be a powerful step towards healing. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podcast Index, Podcast Addict, Deezer, and Player FM. Your feedback helps us grow and bring you even better content. If you would like to reach out and submit your story, email unadvertisedinfo.crime@gmail.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We post every Friday. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and take care of each other. Always remember, you're not alone.